In this Blender tutorial, we'll be sculpting the stylized male character face. Now, this is a two-part tutorial series, so in this part, in part one, we're going to be sculpting the entire face, and then in part two, we're going to be using vertex painting to paint the skin, and by using vertex painting, we won't have to retopologize and UV unwrap the sculpt. We can just jump straight into the vertex painting after we're done with the sculpting. And then we'll finish up the materials, do the lighting, and we'll give the character a little bit of a pose to get the final render. And if you find this tutorial series helpful and you'd like to help support me and this channel, then a great way to do that is by joining my Patreon page. So on my Patreon page, you can join one of my Patreon memberships, and that way you'll be helping to support the channel monthly to help me keep on creating these free videos. And if you join my Patreon page, you'll also get access to lots of Blender content, like 3D models and assets, the tutorial files, like the tutorial files for this one here, different artwork project files, and my procedural materials, and geometry node modifier setups, and lots more Blender content on my Patreon page. Or if you'd like to make a one-time purchase of one of my products, you can also check out my Gumroad store, where I also have the same content, so you can purchase any product if you're interested. Now in this tutorial for the sculpting, I am going to be using this Wacom pad tablet, and I would highly recommend that you use some sort of drawing tablet if you're able to, because sculpting with the mouse is much more difficult. I find that my hand kind of cramps up and it's really just hard to use, and with a drawing tablet, you're able to make nice smooth strokes and your posture is a lot better. And drawing tablets also have the pen pressure, so you can press down harder if you want to make the brush bigger or if you want to push down more with the clay. And you've got the different pen buttons to kind of move around the scene as you're sculpting. Now if you're interested in purchasing a drawing tablet, then I will have some Amazon links in the description to this drawing tablet as well as some other drawing tablets that I recommend, and those are affiliate links, so if you make a purchase through those links, then I'll earn a small commission, but with no extra cost to you. Alright, so here I am in a new scene in Blender, and I will also have my screencast keys in the corner if you want to see what buttons I'm pressing. So I'm just going to start by selecting everything, and I'm just going to delete everything. Let's go to the add menu, and I just like to start by adding a sphere. I like to sculpt with a sphere, so I'll go to mesh and I'll add an icosphere, and then right behind me on the add icosphere settings, I'm going to turn the subdivisions up pretty high to like a 6, and that way we'll have lots of sculpting detail. Alright, so I'm going to zoom into this object, and we can just go straight into the sculpting workspace. So we have the brushes right over here, and then we have a few different settings up here, and then we have some more settings over here. Now I'm going to make this smaller because all these settings over here, we can actually get them up here. So I'm just going to drag this really small to kind of get it out of the way. Now, something that's really important is that you turn on the X symmetry, because we're going to be sculpting a face. We want to use the symmetry so that we only have to sculpt halves of the side. So let's click here on the X to turn on the X symmetry, and now you can see there's that little blue dot there. So if I sculpt on this side, it'll also show up on the other side. And then also I want Blender to add more geometry as we sculpt, so we can sculpt more detail when we actually sculpt in a certain area. So I'm going to click here to turn on the Dyn Topo, and I'll click on OK. So this will add more sculpting detail as we're actually sculpting. And then here on the Dyn Topo settings, I like to turn the detail size maybe to just like a 5 for starting out, but then if you make this smaller, it'll get more and more detailed. And then a few other settings that I want to change. I want to click here on the brush settings, and I want to click on the accumulate. This is going to add more and more clay, so it'll add more layers of clay as we're sculpting. So basically, if I click and drag and then start to sculpt and then keep on sculpting, you can see it's just going up higher and higher and higher and higher. So that's what the accumulate does. And then also here on the brush settings, let's turn on front faces only, and this will make sure that it doesn't actually sculpt any of the back faces. It'll just sculpt out the front of the faces. Alright, so I'll hit 1 on the numpad to go to front view. Let's also save our project, so we'll click on File and Save As. You can just save the Blender file in a folder on your computer. I'll click on Save As, and then as you're working on the project, just press Ctrl S to save it. Alright, so I'm going to bring my drawing tablet right over here. So I have my drawing tablet right in front of me, and I'm going to be sculpting down here, but then I'm going to look up at the screen so I can see where the actual brush is. And I also have my keyboard right in front of me above the tablet, and I'm going to put my fingers on the Shift and Control key. So that way I can hold down the Shift key and then click with the front pen button, and that way we're going to move around, we're going to pan, and then I can also hold down the Control key and then click with the front pen button, and that is going to move in and out. And then I can also just click and drag with the front pen button, and that will just orbit around. And then also, if you start to sculpt in an area, like let me just start to like sculpt right here, you can then press the period key on the numpad, and that is going to zoom into your sculpting area. So you can see now it's orbiting around on that area. Then what you can also do is press the F key to make your brush bigger, or you can also drag the radius right here to make your brush bigger. And then you can also change the strength of the brush right here. So I'm going to make my brush pretty big. I'm also going to press the G key, or you can click right here to go to the grab brush, and I'll just make the radius a bit bigger so it's pretty big. We can also make the strength a bit stronger, and I'm going to hold down the control key and then click with my front pen button just to kind of zoom out here. And we're going to start by blocking the main shape of the head. And one more quick thing I forgot to mention, if you want to change the matte cap, then you can click right here on this drop down, and then you can click here on matte cap and you can change it to lots of different matte caps. You're not going to see all of these because I've added in my own matte caps. I'm going to leave the matte cap at this one because I really like it, but there's lots of different matte caps you can change, or you can also use these studio ones right here. I'll just keep it at the default one. And also I would recommend grabbing some reference images of like some facial anatomy. That can be really helpful. I do have some reference images on my other monitors. So what I first want to do is push the side of the head in, because the side of the head is a bit more flat. So we're on the grab brush, so I can just kind of tap here with my pen, and I can just kind of push this in just like that. So I'm just tapping along there, just gonna push that in and make it more flat. And then another way to make it more flat is you can go here to the clay strips brush. You can navigate over here to the side, and then you can hold down the control key. You can start to kind of push in the clay there. You could also press the F key to make the brush bigger, and just push in a little bit more, just kind of flatten it. And then at any time during your sculpting, if you want to smooth it out, you can go over to the smooth brush. I think if you press the S key, that'll go to the smooth brush. However, instead, if I go back here to the clay strips, because you use the smooth brush a lot, you can just hold down the shift key. So shift, and then you can just sculpt, and that is going to activate the smooth brush temporarily. And then when you let go, it'll go back to the original brush. So hold down the shift key, kind of smooth that out, and kind of smooth that out. All right, so we flattened the sides a little bit. Now I want to bring down the jaw, so I'll hit G to go back to the grab brush. Let's go over here to the side, so navigate to the side of the head, and let's just click along here and tap, and we're going to push down the jaw. You can also press the 3 on the numpad to go to side view if you want to, and kind of push along here. Let's also bring this up a little bit and then bring this down. And also we can pull the back of the head out just a little bit and also up a little bit, because this is kind of like a stylized head. It's somewhat realistic, but it still has a kind of some stylized features. So I'm going to be pushing the top of the head up a little bit. We could also push this up a little bit and kind of just shape the jaw. And I want this guy's jaw to be pretty sharp. So we're going to click here to go to the clay strips brush. And then if I start to go along here, because we turned on the Dyn Topo setting, you can see if I zoom in and then sculpt more, it's going to add more detail. So you can see all that detail there. So let's just go along here and then bring this over. We can also maybe make our brush a bit smaller, and we're going to just make the shape of the jaw. And I want it to be a pretty sharp jaw. So let's just go along here. I think the strength definitely needs to be higher. So just go along here, maybe make my brush bigger, and we're just gonna make the shape of that jaw. So here, this is gonna be the chin, and then here's the jaw, and then here's like the jawline. And then also hold down the shift key, you can kind of smooth that out because it was kind of popping out a little bit too much. Let's also go along here and kind of push in the jaw a little bit, maybe over here on this side, kind of push that in so I can clearly see the shape of the jaw. Let's hit the G key to go back to the grab brush. And I can kind of push this down a little bit. All right, and bring this over a little bit. Now, I don't really want that coming up and then going back down. So let's try to fix that a little bit. So something like that's pretty good. Maybe push that in a little bit more because it was coming out a bit. Make sure to move around and look at your sculpt from different angles to make sure that you're getting the correct shape. Because if you sculpt for a long time at one angle and then change angles, you might notice there's something wrong. Let's go back here to the clay strips brush. And I'm just going to go along here and kind of add a bit more clay, just kind of popping this out a little bit. Hold down the shift key, kind of smooth that out there. So I'm now going to push back in where the eye sockets are. So to push back in clay, you can hold down the control key. So hold down the control key, push in the clay, and then if you just normally sculpt, that'll bring out the clay. But control key is going to push in the clay. All right, just like that. Push in the clay there. We're just going to make these big sockets where the eyes are. If you go around in circles here and bring that in, already we're starting to get like where the nose is. And then right here, this is where the cheekbone is going to be. So this is that big cheekbone under the eyes. So let's go along here And let's just push out where the cheekbone is a little bit. And then also right here, we can push out where we want the nose is. So just kind of push that out, and then you can go along the nose, just kind of bringing that out there. And I like to make kind of a triangle shape, and then later we can sculpt in the nostrils and the detail, but I like to give a nice triangle shape. So you can see if I'm going around here, it's kind of bringing that out, making kind of that triangle shape. So this is where the nostrils are going to be. So let's just push this out. Then I can also hold down the control key and kind of flatten out the bottom of the nose. Hold down the control key, push that in a little bit. All right. And bring this down a little bit, just bringing out that cheekbone. All right, that's pretty good. Also right here, this is where like the cheek is gonna be, and he is kind of a little bit more thin and kind of stylized as well. So I'm gonna push in that cheek just a little bit. So I'm gonna hold down the shift key and smooth that out a little bit. Maybe smooth this out, kind of smooth that out. Now you can see right here, there's very little detail, but there's lots of detail here. That's because of the Dyn topo. So if I just go along here and kind of push right here or add clay, that'll add more geometry, and then I can hold down the shift key and smooth it out. Now, the mouth does come out a little bit, so I'm gonna push around here to kind of pop out the mouth a little bit, just like that. So if you look here on the side of the character, the nose is gonna pop out, then it will go back in, then the mouth will come out and go back in, and then the chin will come out. So we definitely need to fix the shape right now, because if you look here on the side, everything looks a bit flat. So I'm gonna hit the G key for the grab brush, and I will make the radius a bit smaller, and I'm gonna push this back a little bit to kind of bring the eyes back. Let's also hit the 3 on the numpad to go to side view, and I wanna kind of bring this down and push this out a little bit, and then the nose definitely needs to come out more, so I can tap the nose and bring that out, and then also just kind of tap here and bring the mouth out, and then right under the lips, this can go in, and then we can pull this out here. So we're kind of making that basic shape of the side of the head, kind of the profile of the head. Let's also push this in here where the eyes are, so the nose kind of comes back, and bring that in to make the nose a little bit more flat. And I think the whole nose needs to be a little bit higher, so just bringing up the nose a little bit, there's a bit more space for the mouth. And here, the front of the head, kind of the top of the head, just push that out just a little bit. So that is definitely looking a lot better. There's some really weird shapes with the nose and stuff, but the proportions are definitely better. We definitely want to focus on just the main shapes, just kind of blocking out the shapes and the proportions. We don't want to get too detailed right now. Let's press Ctrl S to save the project, or you can click on File and just click on Save. So the nose definitely needs some work, so we'll go here to the clay strips brush. Let's zoom in here, and I can just go along here. We're just gonna go down the nose and kind of push that out. Hold down the Control key if you want to push any spots in. The nose is definitely coming out too much, so let's hold down the Shift key and we'll go around in light circles, just pressing lightly to kind of smooth that out there. Then I'll press down harder to kind of smooth that out there. Smooth the bottom of the nose, so you can kind of see the nose. The bottom of the nose is kind of making that triangle shape. So then this is where the nostrils are going to be. So let's go around in circles to kind of bring out the shape of the nostrils there. And then we can hold down the Control key and push around here to kind of push that in. Now, there's also kind of like a crease right here, which goes down to the mouth. And if you're smiling, you can see it a lot better. So let's hold down the Control key and we'll go along here. We're going to push in that crease, and then right here, that is where like the ends of the mouth are going to be. If you want to, you can kind of like draw a line where the mouth is going to be. So you can see there's the mouth, then there's the creases right there, and then here's the cheekbone, and there's going to be some skin, which is kind of being pulled back right there, and then there's going to be a little crease going down from the sides of the nose to the mouth. And let's hold down the Shift key and kind of smooth this out because everything is a little bit rough. So just hold down the Shift key and smooth that out there, smooth that out a lot, and we'll smooth that out a lot. All right, so let's continue with the nose. So I'll go around in circles here, kind of bring that out, hold down the Shift key, push that back in a little bit, or smooth it out a little bit. And then let's also hold down the Control key and we'll push in the push in clay strips right there, because this is where the end of the nose is going to be in the nostril, and then here is going to be kind of the tip of the nose. So we'll add a bit of clay there and then just kind of smooth that out. Let's kind of push this in. All right, just pushing that in a little bit more. And then you can also push this in. I want the nose to be somewhat round so we can smooth that out really well. Smooth that out there. Maybe push this in a little bit more and then we can smooth that out there. And then we can also just add clay here and we can kind of make that spot of the nose which comes down. And then right here, the nostrils are going to be. Now for making the nostrils, I find that actually going here to the draw brush, just the default brush here. It's called the draw brush. You can press the F key to make your brush smaller. And I like to use the draw brush because it's a bit more smooth and round. So I'm going to hold down the control key and then just kind of push in here. And we're just going to push back in where the nostrils are, kind of like that. And then hold down the shift key and smooth it out a little bit. All right, just like that. All right, let's go to the clay strips brush. And I want to go along here. Oh, and there was an issue there. Let's press Ctrl Z to undo that. And for some reason, if I click here on the brush settings, it looks like the front faces only got turned off. I believe that might be because you actually change these settings per brush. So if I click on another brush and then go here to the brush settings, you can see it's turned off. So I want to click on the clay strips, then go to the brush settings, and I want to turn on the accumulate and front faces only. So this way, now I can push in there, and it looks like we're not having those issues where it's pulling out the back of the faces. It still is a little bit of an issue. Let me just smooth that out though. All right, something like that. Let me go back to the draw brush because the draw brush just seems to work really well. And I'll hold down the control key and go around in circles, and then we can smooth that out a little bit. Let's go back to the clay strips brush, and I just want to shape this a little bit more. So I'll hold down the control key and push this in right there so it kind of connects to the face. And then go around in circles here and just really define that shape. All right, hold down the shift key, smooth that all out. Now I don't want to get too detailed into this area because we still haven't kind of fixed all the proportions, but I just want to get the basic shape of the nose. All right, let's go along here, and I want to make kind of more of a straighter nose. Of course, everyone's nose is kind of a different shape, but for this guy, I want to make him kind of have a hard, straight nose. All right, and then hold down the shift key, smooth that out. Let's go down here to the mouth, and it looks like the mouth needs to be a bit higher. So I'll go to the grab brush with the G key, and I'll just kind of pop this up a little bit, and then pull this back a little bit. So make sure that the shape of the mouth is going around the face. You don't want it to be very flat. That's a mistake that I made a lot when I was first learning sculpting. And of course, I'm always improving my skills. But when I was first learning sculpting, I remember my faces were super flat. But really, if you take a look at like a 3D head or just look at yourself in the mirror, you can see that their mouth actually curves around their face. So it really is quite three-dimensional. All right, so something like that is pretty good. It might be a little bit too far out, so maybe push it in just a little bit. But something like that is good. I might bring the mouth up just a little. So let's go here to the clay strips brush, and I'm going to hold down the control key and just kind of push in here, push in the clay, and then also right here, I can kind of pop out the chin a little bit. And I'm making kind of a stylized character, so I'm going to have him have kind of a big pointy chin or kind of a hard chin. So something like that is pretty good. Just making it kind of big. And then we can kind of smooth out these areas here. All right. Push that in a bit more and then smooth it out again. All right, and this part here, it's a little bit rough, so I'm just gonna smooth that all out there. And we can also just smooth that out right there. Smooth that out, but I'll still leave the top crease. All right, so now let's cut in where the mouth is gonna be. So for this, I'm gonna be using the crease brush, and I'll zoom in here, and I'll hold down the control key and just start to crease. Actually, I don't wanna hold down the control key because that's popping out the clay. So let me press the F key to make my brush bigger. I'm just gonna click and just push it in, and it's gonna add a nice crease there for the mouth. So you can see it's already looking better. Push that in there, kind of make a little bit of a crease there at the end of his mouth. All right, that's pretty good. So let's hit the G key for the grab brush. And I think I need to make the nose come up a little bit more. And we will push this in as well, kind of push that in there. And then the front of the mouth, we'll just bring it out a little bit. And I do want him to have a small smile. You can bring up the edges of his mouth just a little bit to give a small smile. All right, now I definitely want to get more into the eyes and add more details to the eyes, but to help us with the eyes, I'm going to be adding a different object for the eyeballs, and then we can sculpt the eyelids around the eyes. So let's click back here on the layout, and we'll go back to object mode, and I'll go to the add menu, and I'm going to go here to mesh, and I'm just going to add a regular UV sphere. So I'll hit the tab key to go into edit mode, and I'm going to rotate the sphere on the x-axis by 90 degrees, hit enter, and then I can scale this much farther down, and I'll go to the side here and just kind of bring it out to the side, and we'll just stick it over here on this side, bring it back in a little bit. We can scale it down a bit more and just stick it in the eye socket. And we can of course adjust this later if we find the eye is a bit too big or too small. So I'm going to go with probably a size about that big and then bring it forward just a little bit more, kind of stick it there in the center of the eye. Let's go back to object mode and I'll go here to the modifiers. We'll click on add modifier and we'll add a mirror modifier, and then I'll just use the object context menu to shade it smooth. All right, so select the face and we can go back to sculpting and then make sure you click here and click on OK to turn on the Dyn Topo. So it adds geometry as we're sculpting. All right, so I now want to shape the top here. So I'm going to go along here and let's see. What I want to do is turn off this little button here because this is using the pen pressure for the radius. So I'll turn that off, but I do want the strength to be using the pen pressure. So if I press down harder, it adds more clay. And then I'm going to be using the clay strips brush and I'll go along here and start to shape kind of where the eyebrows are. So smoothing that out, smoothing this out here, kind of push this back in where the eye socket is going to be, push that down a little bit. All right. And then smooth that out, kind of flatten it out a little bit. We can push back in here a little bit more. And then let's start to make the eyelids. So I'm going to go around in circles here, just kind of pushing out and adding more and more clay. So making those eyelids until they kind of pop through, and go along here and kind of fix that there. Bring this down here, maybe even make the strength a little bit stronger so it adds even more clay. And then right here, go along back and forth, just kind of pushing out a lot of clay there to kind of build up the bottom eyelid. And if there's some stretching here, you can go back along this and smooth it out and go back along this to kind of fix the geometry and then smooth that out there. So it's pretty messy right now. Let's smooth it out. So I definitely want to change the shape of this. So I'll hit the G key for the grab brush. We're going to pull this forward and kind of start to actually pull that around the eye. All right, something like that. I think it's a bit more forward. All right, kind of looking here on the side because I don't want it to be out too far. Now I think that that eye is a little bit too far out. So what I can do is click on sculpt mode, go back to object mode, and I can just select the eye and we'll go into edit mode. I'll hit G to grab and just bring it back a little bit because I think it was a bit too far out. So that's a bit better. So we'll go back to object mode. We'll select the sculpt and we'll change it back to the sculpt mode. And then of course you need to click here and click on OK to turn back on the Dyn Topo. So something about the eyes is that usually the bottom eyelid is going to be more flat, whereas the top eyelid is going to kind of come up, then go straight over and then go back down. So let's kind of create that shape. So let's bring this back here and this here, bring it forward a little bit, but the eyelids are going to wrap around the eyeball. So let's go here to the clay strips brush and I'll hold down the control key and kind of push in there and then hold down the shift key and smooth that out. All right. That's going to be the bottom one. So you can see the bottom one here, this is going to be a little bit more straight, whereas this one here, the top one is going to kind of come up, then it's going to kind of come over, and then it will go back down. So I'm going to kind of create that shape. There's kind of like 3 planes here. So this one, then this one here, and then it kind of goes back down. All right, and then hold down the shift key and definitely smooth that all out. All right, smooth that all out there. Smooth that out there. And then we have this other plane here. This is kind of like that part above the eye. And then of course the eyebrows right here. So basically it goes back down, then the eyelid comes up and there's kind of a little lip there, or a little crease there, and then it goes back down into the eye. So right here, if we want to flatten this, we can hold down the control key and kind of push that in a little bit. Also hold down the control key here and push that in a little bit. And if you want to, here on the Dyn Topo, I think I might turn the detail size up to like a 6 so that the detail is going to be a little bit bigger, because the detail is getting a little bit small and we kind of don't need that much detail. All right, so pushing that in, I definitely don't want it to be too thick, and smooth that out there. All right, along here, just adding a bit more geometry there and then smooth that out. And I think I'll go back to the grab brush and just kind of play around with the shape of this, because like I don't want it to be too thick right there, so I'm going to bring this back in so that it's closer to the eye. So bring it back in there, bring this down a little bit so you can kind of see this is more straight, whereas this comes up, goes over, and then goes back down. And I'll go back to the clay strips brush and just kind of fix some of the geometry here, because I want to make this look a little bit more round, a little bit nicer. Hold down the shift key and smooth that out there. Now we also want to kind of crease in a few spots, so we can click here to go to the crease brush. And I can just start to crease in here. And then if you hold down the control key as you use the crease brush, that's going to pinch it instead of creasing it. So it's going to pinch that and make a really sharp area. So just like that, pinch that there, go down there. And then right here, we can also just pinch that there, kind of sharpening up that eyelid there right before it touches the eye. These are kind of like the bags underneath the eyes, kind of along here. So we can just go along here and add a bit of a crease. Let's maybe make the brush strength a little bit stronger, and then we can go along there and kind of crease that in. All right, hold down the shift key and smooth that all out there. Definitely starting to get more the shape of the eye. However, it kind of feels like it's going back in really far. You can kind of see how far back it's going in. So I think I want to go to the grab brush and kind of zoom out here and just kind of pull the entire thing forward a little bit because it just does seem like it's going pretty far back into the eye, or kind of back into the skull a little bit. And then we need to go back to object mode. We need to select the eye again and go into edit mode, and I'll hit G to grab, move the geometry over, bring it forward a little bit, maybe bring it down a little bit, scale it up a little, maybe even make it a little bit smaller. We'll select the sculpt again, and we'll go back into sculpt mode. We need to turn on the Dyne Topo again, and then we'll zoom in here and just kind of fit that to the eye. So bring this in here, because it's a little bit thick right now. I don't want those eyelids to be too thick. I want them to be a bit more thin. Now I also want to go back to the crease brush, and I want to crease this in a little bit sooner. So I'm going to crease this down a little bit sooner, maybe even make my brush a bit smaller, and just kind of crease that in a little bit before this crease here, because I think it was a little bit too big. Crease that in there, and then this part here we can kind of smooth that out. And then let's go to the clay strips brush, and I'll go along here and just add clay there. Kind of fill this in a little bit, and I want this here to be almost like a flat plane, so it kind of comes up here and then comes up here. So let's just make that a little bit more flat, add clay there, and then just hold down the shift key and smooth that out. We can also go along here and add more clay to give it more geometry. And then I want to add more eyebrows. Now the eyebrows are going to be a separate object, but I want to make kind of like the skin and the bone there where the eyebrow is. So I'm going to pop that out a little bit. All right, I want to have kind of like a crease here, and then we can smooth that out. Now that's making him look a little bit angry, so if I hit the G key for the grab brush, we can kind of play around with the shape of that so it doesn't look super angry. And then if I go to the crease brush again, carve in here, and I'm going to make a little bit of a crease, kind of going up there and then up. Hold down the shift key and smooth that out there. Now if I go close up to the nose right here, this spot here, I want to kind of come back in before it goes forward. So I'll hit the G key for the grab brush. We can kind of push this in and then kind of have it pop out here. So it's just kind of that little bit there on the very top of the nose where it kind of goes back in a little bit. And then some people's nose also kind of bumps out just a little, kind of in the middle. So we can kind of pop that out just a little bit if we want to. Bring that in just a little bit. Maybe go to the clay strips brush, hold down the control key, just push that in a little bit, and then smooth it out. Maybe smooth this out here a little bit so the nose is a little bit more rounded. Okay, and then if I go back to the crease brush, we can go along here and kind of crease in this area a bit more. So I'm going to crease in around the wings of the nose, and then crease this wrinkle here in the skin. Or it's not really a wrinkle, but it's more the stretching of the skin, and then smooth it out just lightly. So I'm going to lightly hold down the shift key and just lightly smooth that out by pressing down lightly on the tablet. Now I also want to make the jaw a little bit more stylized, and I want to have him kind of have a really sharp jaw. So what I'm going to do is kind of pull this chin out a little bit, kind of make it a really thick chin, kind of a squarish chin to make it look a bit more stylized, and just to make his edges look a bit more hard. And then we can go to the clay strips brush. I'll zoom in here, hold down the control key and kind of add a bit of a dimple, and then smooth it out a little bit. And then we can go to the side of the jaw and just add a bit more clay around here. All right, add a bit more clay along here, and then smooth that out a bit. Also down here, smooth that out a little bit. And right here, it's kind of a bit lumpy, so just lightly kind of smoothing that out so it's a little bit more round. All right, make sure to press Control S every now and then as you're working on the project to save it. And I now want to kind of bring down the neck and start to make kind of the shoulders a little bit. So let's do that. So the best way that I found to do this is to go to the draw brush, and then I'll press the F key to make my brush really big, and I can also turn up the strength a bit. So now I can just kind of go around in circles, and we're just gonna kind of pull out, or not really pull out, but draw out the neck, go along there, kind of going around in circles. All right, just bring that out far enough that we have a small neck. Bring that down. So now that's kind of brought down a bit, we can just hit the G key for the grab brush, and we can just kind of pull it along. And it's kind of thin right now, but we can thicken it up later. So we'll bring this down, and we'll kind of pull this out, and we'll kind of bring this up for the shoulders. So it's really thin right now, of course. That looks quite weird, but we're going to thicken it up. And I want him to look pretty big and muscular, so I'm going to kind of have some big shoulders. And you can see the geometry is really stretched, but we'll be fixing that because we have the Dyne Topo turned on. So I can go to the clay strips brush, and I can go along here, and because adding geometry as we sculpt, it's kind of gonna clean up the geometry just by going along there and adding a bit of clay, and then hold down the shift key and smooth it out. So let's go along here, add more clay, and smooth that all out there. Add more clay there. All right, hold down the shift key, just go along in circles and kind of smooth all that out. Okay, and I'm gonna hold down the control key and push in here just to kind of sharpen that up or flatten it. Add more clay there to fill that in there, and then smooth that all out there. So let's hit the G key for the grab brush again, and I'm gonna bring this down. We're kind of gonna make like a bust shape. If this were like, you know, like a statue or something, even though I'm trying to create a stylized character, I kind of want to just focus on the face. So I'm just going to make a shape to make it almost look like it's a statue bust. So pull that back up a little bit and the shoulders. Let's go back to the clay strips brush, and I definitely want to make the neck thicker. So let's go along here and add like the Adam's apple there, kind of pop that out. Then we can just go along here and just add a lot more clay just to thicken it. We can also go along here and add those two big neck muscles, which kind of start below the ear and kind of come down. And here on the back, we just need to add a lot more clay, kind of merging the back of the neck with the head. And the neck kind of does come in a little bit here, so I am going to fill this in, but not all the way, because the back of the neck does have a little crease right in here on the very back of the head. And this is quite messy here, so let's hold down the control key and just kind of define that shape again of the jaw. Just lightly smooth that out there. We're also going to need to make the ears pretty soon. Let's smooth that out there. This is kind of rough, so smooth that out, and we'll just smooth out the other parts of the neck there. Let's go to the grab brush again, and I want to bring this forward a little bit, so we'll pull the neck out a bit so it's a bit more forward. And then if we go here to the back of the head, we could kind of pop this out just a little bit so the back of the head and even the top of the head are just coming up a little bit, because we're kind of making a stylized character, so I want the top of his head to be a little bit pointy. And something else that I want to do is, if I zoom in here to kind of the top of the head right here, I want to cut this in a little bit and crease it in a little bit. So let's go to the clay strips brush. I'll hold down the control key and kind of cut in here to the side of the head, kind of over the eye. Just kind of push that in, push in the clay just a little bit, and right around here, and then hold down the shift key and lightly smooth that out there, and smooth that out. I don't want it to be too visible, but I do want that part to kind of go back in a little bit. So you can kind of see what we're creating. So there's almost like this bone that goes here, then it goes around, and this part starts to come up. So we'll smooth that all out there. All right, let's go along here and just add a little bit more clay so that there's more geometry, so it's kind of even with the rest of the sculpt. So I'm going to go along there, add a bit more geometry, and then hold down the shift key and lightly smooth that all out. Smooth that out there. All right. And then I'll just kind of continue this. So I'll hold down the control key and push this in just a little so that this top part of the head is a little bit more flat, and then smooth that out there. Looking pretty good, but needs to be a little bit smoother. So just use the smooth brush and just lightly smooth that all out. All right, so let's now do the ear. So I'll just go over to this side. I'll press Ctrl S to save this again. And for the ear, I like to use the draw brush because this is a really nice brush for adding the ear. So I'll press the F key to make my brush smaller, and the ear will kind of start up here. It'll go up a little bit, and it's going to finish right down here by the jaw. So let's just go around, maybe make our brush a little bit bigger, go around and kind of pop out that ear. All right, just make the basic shape of the ear, and then hold down the shift key and just smooth that out a little bit. Maybe make the bottom of the ear there and have this come up and go down. And we definitely need to smooth that out because that's coming out a bit too far. So then back here, we kind of want to push in the ear. So still using the draw brush, I can hold down the control key and start to push in behind the ear. And let's also kind of on the inside here, bring this out to make it a bit thicker and bring it out a little bit. And then just smooth that out a bit. All right. So then back here, just kind of push that in to kind of give it a crease. So crease in there behind the ear, just smooth that out there. All right. And then to kind of bring out the ear, you can see the ears are a really weird shape right now. So if we go to the grab brush, we can just kind of fix the shape. So kind of pull out the ear a bit more because it needs to be a bit farther away from the head, and we'll fix this spot later because we're kind of pulling out the head with the ear. Fix that there so it's a bit more round, pull that out there, and pull down the earlobe just a little bit. And I think the entire ear is a little bit large, so I might just push it back in a little bit. All right, so let's go to the clay strips brush, and I can hold down the control key and just kind of push in there. And you can see a problem just happened. So let me just fix that. So I can just go along here and add more clay, and then hold down the shift key and smooth that out there. So let's smooth this out here. And then this crease here is a little bit rough. So if we go back to the crease brush, I can just crease in there using that crease brush. So just creasing along the back of the ear to kind of push that in and crease it in, creasing that in there. And right here, more on the front of the ear. And then if you hold down the shift key, you can lightly smooth it out if there's any rough areas or bumpy areas. Now if we go to the front here, the ear still looks quite weird, so we should definitely fix that. So let's go to the grab brush, and I'll just kind of tap here and just kind of pull out the ear, push this back in a little bit, pull this out a little bit here, and I'll go back to the crease brush again and just refine the shape of the ear. So I'll add a bit more clay there, going around the ear. You can also hold down the control key and push in, kind of push inside the ear, kind of give it that hollow area. And then let's also crease here and down and over, and push in here, push it in really far to kind of push back the ear, just kind of carve out that area. And we can go around in circles and kind of have that little detail there in the ear, which kind of comes over. Smooth that out, and then really crease in there by holding down the control key and pushing in, just pushing in with the clay to define that shape of the ear, and then just smooth out the inside. And then we can go back to the crease brush. We can even crease this even further using the crease brush. So crease in here, and up here inside the ear and over here, crease that all in, and then smooth it out a little bit. We can also hold down the control key as we're using the crease brush to kind of pop out the ear and just make it a little bit more pointy and sharp on the end. So I'm just lightly holding down the control key and pushing that to kind of crease it or to pinch it forward. So it's like a crease, but it's going the opposite direction. All right, now if I look here on the front again, it kind of looks like the head is kind of coming in too narrow on the top here. So I'll go to the grab brush. We're just gonna kind of tap along here. I just want to pull out the head a little bit, but then right up here, maybe push it in just a tiny bit. All right, that's a bit better. Now the neck is definitely still too thin, so let's go back and fix the neck. So I'll go to the clay strips brush, and we'll go along here and kind of thicken up the neck by adding more clay. We can also kind of have a muscle right here, so just pushing along there, going back and forth, adding a muscle there that goes to the shoulders, filling that in a little bit, and just overall making the neck a bit thicker. Kind of fill that in there. Go along here and add a bit more clay to the back where his back is kind of starting. And we can kind of fill this in just a little bit. Maybe just hold down the control key and push that in a little bit. And then down here, let's just add a bit more skin along here because he's looking a little bit bony here right on the bottom. So I'm going to fill that in and then go around in circles as you hold down the shift key and just lightly smooth that all out there. And we can go back here and kind of smooth out our strokes. Smooth that out. Smooth that all out. Now I think the mouth is a little bit too big. So I'm going to go down here to the bottom, kind of looking up, and I'm just going to pull the mouth in a little bit because I think it was a little bit too big. And I think I'll pull the chin up a little because the chin was a little bit pointy. Now I definitely want to fix this whole area because you can see this bottom lip looks like really large. It looks really thick, almost like swollen. So I want to fix that. So we'll go here to the clay strips brush. I'll hold down the control key and kind of push this in right here because we definitely want that to go in. Hold down the shift key, smooth that out there. Maybe push this in just a little bit and then smooth that out there. All right, smooth that out there. We can also push this in a little bit because we don't want it to come out quite that much. And there's kind of a bump right here. So let's push that in and then smooth that out there. Make that nice and smooth. All right, so let's actually do the lips since we're kind of on this. Let's do the lips. We've kind of pushed this in. Let's actually push this in a little bit farther. Push that in there and then smooth it out. But then we are going to want to have the lips pop out a little bit. So using the clay strips brush, I'll zoom in here and we'll start with the bottom one. So I'm going to go start here on the top and go down. So we're starting where that crease is and we're going down. So the lip is going to be the thickest right here. And then as it comes back up to the side of the mouth, it's going to get smaller. So it starts out big there and then it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. You can kind of zoom in so that your brush is smaller and just make that a lot smaller there on the sides. You can also hold down the control key and kind of make a little crease right in there, right where the bottom of the lip is. Kind of crease that in and then smooth that out. All right, I'm going to go to the grab brush again, and I just want to change the shape of it because it just kind of looks weird. He almost looks like he's puckering up his lips a little bit. So let's kind of relax it, bring the lips down a little bit and pull them back just a little bit. So that looks a bit better. If we go here to the side of the face, we can maybe define the shapes a little bit better. So pushing in that and then popping out where the chin is. And then right here below the nose, we can kind of push that back a little bit and then pull out the mouth a little bit. So you can clearly see the side profile of the chin and the mouth and the nose. All right, let's do the top lip now. So we'll go here to the clay strips brush and I'll zoom in. And we're gonna start by kind of going up, kind of bringing this out, and then we'll go back down. So it's going to go up and go back down. Let's hold down the control key and push in that little crease there. There's a little crease between the nose and the top of the top lip. So crease that in and then hold down the shift key and smooth it out. All right. And then we can start here on the bottom and kind of go up, or we can start on the top and go down. And then again, just like the bottom lip, as it goes closer to the end of the mouth, it's going to get thinner and thinner. So let's go back here, do the same thing. Go along here, pull out the clay, add layers, and then it gets smaller as it goes closer to the end of the mouth. And then hold down the shift key, smooth that out there, and lightly smooth out the lips. And also here on the bottom lip, lightly smooth that out. All right, so let's now crease the lips. So we're going to go to the crease brush, and this time I'm going to hold down the control key, and that way it's going to kind of pinch the clay out instead of pushing it back in. And then have it go down here, and then right here in the mouth, we can actually crease where the in between the lips are. Crease that in a little bit more. And then I'm going to go back to the clay strips brush, and I'll hold down the control key and push in a little bit and then smooth that out just to define that shape a little bit better. Also right here, just push that in a little bit underneath. Just hold down the control key and push that in underneath the lips and then smooth that out. All right, so I want to continue to make the neck a little bit thicker. So using the clay strips brush, I'm just going to go along here and just add a bit more clay, just thickening up the neck. Also, there is a muscle which kind of starts up here below the ear, and it kind of goes down to more the center of the chest. So I'm going to go along back and forth and just show that muscle a little bit, and we'll have it go up here. And then once you've defined that shape, we're going to lightly smooth it out there. Also smooth out the front of the neck, but I do want to overall just make the neck a little bit thicker. So I'm just going to add more clay as well along here and along here, just giving the neck a bit more thickness. And then let's also kind of shape the bust part. So I'll hit the G key for the grab brush, and let's kind of push this in a little bit, push this in a little bit, and back here. And then we'll go to the clay strips brush, and I'm just going to define that shape better. So going sideways, going up and down, and back here, just really defining that shape, and down here as well. And then something weird happened here, so I'll go back over that. And then what you can do is hold down the control key and push back in there and around there, and then we can smooth that out there. All right, let's hold down the control key. We're just gonna flatten this entire area. Now what you can also do is use this flatten brush if you want to. So click on the flatten. You can make your brush a bit bigger, and then you can go along here and just kind of flatten out areas if you want to. That kind of works okay. Maybe turn up the strength a little bit. You can kind of use that to flatten some areas. So I might flatten this entire area. And then you can also go to the crease brush, and you can hold down the control key, and you can sharpen up the side of the bust. So we'll just sharpen that up there. Maybe let's go to the Dyn Topo settings and turn the detail size down to like a 4, so it's a bit sharper, or so there's a bit more detail. Sharpen that there. We can sharpen this here, and hold down the control key and kind of sharpen that there just to create the main shape of the bust, and then we'll smooth that out. And right here on the side, hold down the shift key and just press down hard just to smooth out that side piece. All right, I'm gonna go to the clay strips brush, and I'm gonna go up here to the eyebrows, and I just wanna define the eyebrows a little bit better. So I'll add a little bit more clay right here, going around, and then right here on the side, I wanna go along here and add a bit more clay just to kind of pop out this area. All right, and then hold down the shift key and smooth that out there. Smooth the top part as well. Smooth this out a little bit. Hold down the control key, kind of push in there, and then smooth that out. It's a little bit better. And I want to continue to really define the shapes. So we're going to go back to the crease brush. I'll make my brush a bit smaller. Hold down the control key. Actually, we don't want to hold down the control key in this case because the crease brush will crease in. So we're going to crease that in and then smooth it. Let's also crease the lips. So we're going to hold down the control key so that it pinches instead of creases. And we're going to kind of just show those forms, just kind of pinch out the side there. Smooth that out. Let's also pinch this right here. All right, go along there, smooth that out there. And we can go inside the nose and kind of crease that in a little bit and then smooth it out. We can also kind of crease this or pinch it. I'm just going around and trying to define the shapes really well. So I'm just kind of creasing different edges and pulling some other edges out. We could also like pinch this edge in if we want to make that sharper. We could also like crease right in there just to really define those shapes. Let's also zoom in here, and I want to make like the tear ducts. So I'm going to crease inside here, like where the tear ducts are, then hold down the control key and kind of push that out there. Zoom in there and just kind of pinch that in. All right, and then hold down the control key, and we can just define that shape So just pinch that out and pinch that, and then we can add a little bit more of a crease right in there. I'm going to go back to the grab brush, and I just want to play around with the shape of the eyelids because they're a little bit lumpy and not quite exactly how I want. So you can just go around there using the grab brush and kind of pull around the mesh. All right, now I do want to add a little bit more details to the ear. So we're going to go here to the clay strips brush, and let's just zoom in here. And I want to just kind of pop this out and then have it go back in a little bit more. Now I am going for a stylized character, so I'm not too concerned about making the ear super realistic or getting lots of detail, but I am going to kind of sculpt a little detail coming out here, and then it's going to kind of come back around. Make my brush bigger, and this part here, I want to kind of push this part out and bring it up a little bit. And then let's go back to the clay strips brush, and I kind of push in here. Oh, something happened here, so let's go along there and fix that. Smooth it out. We can kind of push back in there a little bit and smooth that out there. And then here, kind of smooth out that detail. And I'll go to the back of the ear, and I'm going to use the crease brush to kind of crease that in a little bit more. And I'll go to the clay strips brush, and I'll push in some of these areas which are popping out a little bit. Kind of push that in a little bit there and smooth that out. All right, I'm going to go back here to the layout. I'll zoom in here. And I'm going to press Ctrl S to save, and this is going to be it for the sculpting. Let's actually use the object context menu and shade the sculpt smooth. And then what we can also do is we can click here on the drop down, and on the matte cap, I'm going to change it to the matte cap that I used for the sculpting. So this one here. Let's also click on the drop down. We can turn on the shadow here if you want to do that. And then another thing you could do is turn on this cavity here, and on the type here next to the cavity, you can change it to both. So now we have the world space and the screen space, and you can play around with the ridge, which is going to make those parts lighter, or the valley, which is going to kind of add like an ambient occlusion. But I'll press Ctrl S to save, and this will wrap it up for this part of the tutorial. So the sculpting is finished. So thanks for watching the tutorial. I hope you were easily able to follow along, and I hope you're enjoying the tutorial. And in the next part, we're going to be doing a little bit of vertex painting, and we're just going to paint a little bit of the skin, and then we'll add the lighting and the materials. We'll also add some more details to the eye and add the materials to the eye, and we'll just get the finished final render. So when the next part is released, it'll be right up there on the end screen, and I'll also have the link in the video description. And if you'd like to help support me and this YouTube channel, you can check out my Gumroad store and Patreon page, where you can get access to lots of Blender content and help support the channel. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next part.